Tonight, the Supreme Court of Canada will not hear the appeal of an Alberta man jailed for shooting and killing 2 Métis hunters.
We were certainly disappointed. This is not the election that we wanted to see.
The news of former President Donald Trump being re-elected in the U.S. has the Gwich'in in northern Yukon worried about their caribou.
I would like people to be able to have a unique moment with the artworks that are here.
And a new exhibition at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts that showcases Inuit artists. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. An Alberta man who shot and killed 2 Métis hunters in 2020 was denied an appeal of his conviction by the Supreme Court of Canada. Anthony Bilodeau was sentenced to life in prison in July 2022 with no chance of parole for 13 years for shooting and killing Maurice Cardinal and Jacob Sansom. Bilodeau is serving concurrent sentences of second-degree murder for Cardinal and manslaughter for Sansom. He and his father, Roger Bilodeau, chased down Cardinal and Sansom in March 2020 near Glendon, Alberta, 200 kilometers northeast of Edmonton. A security camera showed Anthony shooting both men. He and his father were tried together. His father was sentenced to 10 years, but is already out on parole after receiving credit for 4.5 years time served. Anthony Bilodeau's appeal was denied by Alberta's Court of Appeal in March of this year. As is usual in cases like this, the Supreme Court gave no reasons for its decision. Donald Trump was re-elected as President of the United States last week, and that's unwelcome news for the Gwich'in in northern Yukon, who say a sacred caribou calving ground is now under threat. Sarah Connors has more.
For the Gwich'in in Alaska and Canada, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge's coastal plain in the northeastern part of the state is the sacred place where life begins. The 1.5 million acre plain is the calving grounds of the porcupine caribou herd, a major food source for the Gwich'in. But Donald Trump's re-election could have major implications for the refuge, the caribou, and for the Gwich'in. That's because Trump wants to open the refuge up to oil and gas drilling. That's bad news for the Vuntut Gwich'in in northern Yukon. The First Nations said in a written statement, "Oil and gas development in the coastal plain is an existential threat to the porcupine caribou and to our Gwich'in way of life. And for millennia, the porcupine caribou have provided us with all we need to survive and thrive in our northern homeland. We will not abandon them now when they need us most." It's not the first time Trump has eyed the area for oil and gas development. During the last days of his first administration, the Bureau of Land Management auctioned off more than 500,000 acres of the refuge. But thanks to mounting public pressure, major U.S. and Canadian banks said they wouldn't fund drilling in the refuge, and the sale was a flop. President Joe Biden's administration canceled the few remaining leases last year, but Trump pledged to undo those efforts if re-elected.
We were certainly disappointed. This is not the election that we wanted to see.
Trump's re-election is disappointing news for this environmental nonprofit, especially as a second mandated lease sale is set to take place in the coming weeks. But Kristen Miller of the Alaskan Wilderness League says much like the first sale, the upcoming sale isn't expected to attract much interest. A final environmental statement for the refuge will also help ensure better protections are in place.
So we are very much hoping to see President Biden leave term with no leases held on the coastal plain.
Just hours after Trump's re-election, the Biden administration indicated it will lease only 400,000 acres of the refuge, the legal minimum. That sale must take place before December 22nd. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Thanks, Sarah. A Vancouver man has pleaded guilty to charges related to trafficking bear parts. Instead of going to jail, he will pay a fine, a punishment that the BC Conservation Service thinks will deter others from committing similar offenses. CTV's Ben Nesbitt has more from the provincial courthouse in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia.
Crown says Hong Tao Yang was told multiple times by an undercover investigator that what he was doing was illegal, but that did not stop him. Now he's on the hook for thousands of dollars. The 52-year-old pleaded guilty to 2 counts of trafficking in bear paws and 1 count of trafficking in wildlife meat. According to an agreed statement of facts, a member of the public reported to the BC Conservation Service that a worker at a Maple Ridge scrapyard, later identified as Yang, asked him if he had black bear parts. Conservation then sent an undercover detective to the scrapyard who built a relationship with Yang while posing as a hunter in the fall of 2022. Yang would eventually buy bear parts off the investigator on multiple occasions before he was arrested last October. Crown acknowledged there was no evidence of Yang reselling the parts and agreed that he should only pay the minimum fine for each offense, meaning he now owes a little more than $8,600. Conservation is hoping this will deter others from committing these types of acts.
When you create a market, just by purchasing these items, it can kind of escalate, right? And more people start doing it, and then we have issues with, animal populations.
The judge said that Yang being a first-time offender was a serious mitigating factor. He also accepted defense's submission that Yang bought the parts for both personal use and traditional Chinese medicine. He has 18 months to pay the fine.
We always want to hear what you have to say about anything you see here or something you'd like to see here. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to our website, aptnnews.ca. And you can find us on your favorite social media sites as well, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Our Truth and Politics panelists are here for our weekly discussion. That's coming up after the break, but first a look at a story we'll have for you tomorrow.
I was devastated. I was heartbroken.
I'm Creason Achkate in Winnipeg, where 48-year-old Jason Kennedy recently had his wrong leg amputated at Winnipeg's Grace Hospital. According to the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Kennedy, who is from the Bloodvein First Nation, had to get his right leg amputated due to a bone infection on October 31st. Instead, his left leg was taken below the knee. A critical incident review is now underway to learn why a surgeon amputated the wrong limb. So far, Kennedy says he is in good spirits and forgives the surgeon and medical staff.
Our grandparents always taught us about church and prayer and, having that forgiveness within ourselves and to forgive yourself. And, we can't judge and blame others, for whatever happens in our lives. We leave that up to Creator.
We have more details of this story on our website at aptnnews.ca, and I'll have more on this story on APTN National News on Friday.
Welcome back. Well, as we reported yesterday, one of our Truth and Politics panelists is a recipient of a Governor General's Literary Award. And that is our topic for today's panel. Jennifer Leywitz is a founder of Pusquaw Harbor Strategies and joins us from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. And Neegon Sinclair of the Winnipeg Free Press is back with us. Jen, Neegon, great to see you. Neegon, welcome back, and of course, condolences to you and your family on the passing of your father. I thought you did an amazing job there on Sunday, so welcome back.
Thanks so much, and a big miigwech to everybody all across the Indigenous world for all the, I have more cards and letters and emails and Instagram messages than I think I've ever know what to do with. I've tried responding to everybody, but just big thanks, much love for my family. And it was a really hard time, but my dad was surrounded by all of us at the end when he took his last breath. And so he definitely knew that how much he was loved, not just by us, but by everybody.
Well, and this week some great news for yourself as well, as the winners of the Governor General's Literary Awards were named. You're on that list. Just your reaction to that.
Well, really blown away. I actually heard about the award when I was with my dad when we were in hospital, and so I got to share that moment with him. He was very pleased, very happy, and I think it was a funny moment because he always thought I'd be a lawyer, and he always wanted me to be a lawyer. And I think that getting a bit of achievement in the literary world or being a writer maybe surprised him a little bit, but also I think he was very proud. It is a bit of a tricky balance. I mean, I'll be honest, it's very weird to receive an award that's really a colonial award. It's an award that represents the crown, and so it's kind of one of those interesting moments as an Indigenous person where you're like, I'm really pleased to be recognized, really honored. At the same time, I wish they would call it something else, or maybe I wish it would be something not so colonial.
Jennifer, your opinion on the importance of these particular awards?
Now that Neegon had called them colonial, I'm like, well, should I be saying anything positive? I think that at the end of the day, this is a really good example of how not only Canadian voices, but Indigenous voices can come in and make ripples and have their voices heard and stories heard, especially, allowing Canadian writers and, at the end of the day, people within their own artistic abilities to be able to be showcased on a national level like this is incredible. And I think about how many people maybe hadn't heard of some of these stories or didn't know about their impact until awards like this at such a big level were announced. And now it really just helps bring it all together and maybe promote your voice even further.
And Neegon, when you started putting Winnipeg Visions of Canada from an Indigenous Centre together, did you have a goal in mind?
No, when I started pitching it to publishers, and I was encouraged very much by someone who I was working with in Toronto at the time to sort of start to think about bringing my columns together about my life, basically experiencing activism, all the incredible organizations, all the people who are resisting sort of violence and in Indigenous communities, then also coming up with innovative solutions for it. And it was really pitched or visioned by many people in Toronto outside of Winnipeg as a regional book, right? And kind of something that would just to appeal to a few Winnipeggers. Maybe I should think about a regional publisher or a publisher in Winnipeg. And it was really the vision of those at McClellan and Stewart who then said, no, this could be a national book. This could be about a larger picture, maybe a bigger picture of what Winnipeg is showing to the country in terms of solutions. And so it was pretty exciting. And I was really, if it wasn't for my editor, Haley Cullingham, really believing in this book, I probably wouldn't have even published them altogether. I had no visions of awards, no visions of really doing anything with the book other than just having kind of a moment of my 5 and 6 years as being a columnist, collected in some way in some of the pieces that I'm most proud of. And so I'm really honored for anything that's happened since.
No kidding. Well, Jennifer, Neegon, we're talking about this being a colonial award, but Indigenous writers took home 3 of the 7 awards. Jen, do you think there's some significance to that?
I think so. I think anytime Indigenous writers or authors or artists in any way are acknowledged for the work that they do, it helps at the end of the day preserve our culture and preserve identity and amplify our stories. there's been a lot of really, really good books that have been honored over the years. And I think of, even Jody Wilson-Raybould's book on reconciliation. It's almost like an author putting together such meaningful words, but at the same time, it's almost like a toolkit. And I feel like these books and these pieces can also be incorporated into our education system to also encourage people to learn more about our culture, but through various ways, rather than just be the traditional like how-to that teachers try to incorporate into, classrooms. There's other ways to bring like reading at the top of the list for people to be able to engage and get to know who we are.
Absolutely. Well, Nigon, again, congrats. We'll leave it there, you two, but thanks to you both for being here.
You gotcha. Thanks.
Sometimes our Truth and Politics panel conversations could go on for hours, and that is just one of the reasons we're expanding the panel into a weekly podcast. You'll be able to find those wherever you get your podcasts starting tomorrow and every Friday thereafter. Time for one last break. Still to come, a new toolkit to make Indigenous language revitalization more accessible.
Some speakers, you'd like to record them, then you can do that. You can grab the toolkit, and there's a lot of tips and techniques on how to record.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Christopher Clark shared the view from across Big Play Green Lake, located just north of Lake Winnipeg in the heart of Treaty 5 territory. Thanks, Christopher, for sharing. If you have a picture to share, send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 10 with showers in Halifax, 5 in Fredericton. +1 and cloudy in Kuujjuaq, 1 above in Nain. Sunny and 7 in Montreal, cloudy and 4 in Val-d'Or. Cloudy and 9 in Sault Ste. Marie, 5 in North Bay. 10 in Thunder Bay, showers and 6 in Sioux Lookout. Cloudy and 4 in God's Lake, snow and +2 in Norway House. 9 in Winnipeg, 7 for Dauphin. 6 in Regina, rain and +2 in Saskatoon. -1 in Meadow Lake, cloudy and 4 below in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, snow and -6 in High Level, flurries and -5 in Fort Chip. +2 with snow in Edmonton, 7 in Lethbridge. 8 in Vancouver, 7 in Kamloops. +1 in Prince George, -1 in Smithers. -18 in Old Crow, 3 below with snow in Whitehorse. Flurries and -4 in Yellowknife, -21 in Norman Wells. 16 below with snow in Sax Harbor, flurries and -12 in Pawlatuck. -6 in Chesterfield, 3 below in Arviat. -12 with snow in Resolute, 19 below in Joe Haven. Last Tuesday was a big day for Inuit artists in Montreal. Several of them made their way to the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts for the unveiling of Omakaptik, Essence of Life. It's an exhibition showcasing the richness and diversity of contemporary Inuit artistic expression. Kim Sullivan tells us more.
The Montreal Museum of Fine Arts has been a pioneer in recognizing Inuit artists since the 1950s. The museum has a large collection of Inuit art, including paintings, sculptures, prints, textiles, and installations. The museum has now begun presenting its collection in an impressive and entirely new way in a redesigned space.
And historically, these galleries were dedicated to Mediterranean cultures, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, which were thought of, rightfully so, as the basis, the fundamental basis on which the museum was built. But we've come to see our mission and our role differently. By migrating Inuit art collection to these galleries, we're saying in a very clear fashion that more so than honoring past European cultures, we are engaging with living artists of the territory that we share with them.
The museum has doubled the area previously reserved for Inuit art in bright and modernized rooms where the work of around 60 artists can be admired. Artist and guest curator Essenayak had to listen to the museum's artwork in order to imagine how to present this essence of life known as Umakatik.
I first try to listen to the artworks and discover what they are sharing. And in looking through the link that connected the artworks together, what I found was that the really base meaning and link between them all was the simple fact that life is movement and exchange, transformation and growth.
She invites the public viewing the art to reflect on the currents and rhythms of life, simple and fantastic, particular to the circumpolar territories.
I would like people to be able to have a unique moment with the artworks that are here. They all have so much feeling or knowledge or wisdom or something special to share, and I just really would love people to come and be able to spend a moment with them.
The exhibition will be in constant evolution over the next 5 years, allowing the public to experience a rotation of around 120 works by some 60 Inuit artists. This Kulik by artist Kuzen van Hervelen is the second Indigenous art commissioned by the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts this year. It's especially appropriate as a work of art, as the kulik is an essential element of any Inuit home.
It's an immense honor for us.
Accordingly, Stéphane Aquin was moved to welcome these artists into their new home.
We're very moved by this because we've been working on it for years, and to see it come to life today with all these artists who are with us, it's a great, great moment in our history.
This is also a significant moment for both the artists and the community. Kim Sullivan, APTN, Montreal.
Some beautiful stuff there. The Canadian Commission for UNESCO has released a new toolkit to make Indigenous language revitalization more accessible. The free toolkit, titled Safeguarding Your Language Through Documentation, is geared toward people who want to document an Indigenous language but lack formal training. The 44-page document is written by Ayana Twig, a member of the Ktunaxa Nation in British Columbia, who has been working to revitalize her language since 2018. It includes an overview of the equipment, strategies, and ethical considerations to begin documenting an Indigenous language. The project is part of the Council's efforts to support the United Nations International Decade of Indigenous Languages, which began in 2022. Coordinator Barbara Filion shared a look inside the toolkit and how the resource will benefit communities.
We know that there are some pretty dire statistics out there for Indigenous languages. And if you want to take an active role in your community, you know some speakers, whether it's in your community or in an urban Indigenous community, you know some speakers, you'd like to record them, then you can do that. You can grab the toolkit, and there's a lot of tips and techniques on how to record, like a lot of technical stuff, but then there's also ideas about how to elicit conversation, how to save your work. There's ethical considerations. There's some consent forms that you can use, some wording. So it really gives you a general overview of what you need to think about to get started.
The special edition of Nation to Nation is coming up tonight right after this newscast. Kenneth Jackson is standing by in our Ottawa studio with a preview.
Big city drug dealers are infiltrating small First Nations north of Toronto in the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory. Police have made bust after bust, yet these dealers and their deadly drugs just keep coming. But one First Nation has found a historic way to remove them from their community. We'll talk to them and their lawyer. He lays out how others can do it too. We also speak to a chief who says these dealers are profiting off trauma and killing people along the way. It's another form of genocide, says Chief Adam Pabos of Shawanaga First Nation. All is coming up in a few minutes.
And you can catch Kenneth and Nation to Nation right here in less than 2 minutes' time. We're all out of time for your APTN National News for this Thursday. For news anytime, you can visit our website. That's where you'll find more about that blood vein First Nations man who had the wrong leg amputated at a Winnipeg hospital. Also, Creason will be here tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for your first look at the day's news. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.